Welcome to tacosandgeeks.com. We are back with another review. Justin, and I'm here with
Sean, a true comic fan.
And today we are going to be reviewing the one and only Black Widow, which has just been released. And got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover with this one. Mixed feelings for me. I'm not sure how you felt about it. But as always, let me just give everybody a brief synopsis of the film before we dive into it. So this is the synopsis of the film. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, who's barely in the movie, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and a broken relationship left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. This is starring, of course, the one and only Scarlett Johansson. You have Rachel Weisz, and you have Florence Pugh, and David, the guy from Stranger Things. I forgot his last name. But so, Sean, what did you think, man?
I thought the movie was okay. It was pretty good.
Pretty good.
It wasn't terrible. It was, like it definitely wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I went into it thinking like, okay, just give it a chance, because there were just 1,000,001 spoilers on there. As soon as you turn on YouTube, there's 1,000,001 spoilers. Yeah. And I almost spoiled it for myself. So I said, you know what? No. Sunday I'm watching it with the family. I'm going to sit down. It was, you know what? It was enjoyable. I didn't care that it wasn't like true to the story. It kept pushing the story along. It's pushing phase 4 along. So I'm not too disappointed in it. I think the action was good. I think it was steeped in realism. I think they kept to like a good storyline. Mm-hmm. So not disappointed in it at all, really.
I think this suffered from being too late. I think what really hurt this film was it being too late.
I agree.
I think especially with the timeline that this was in, this movie should have really been out when at her height of her popularity, which was during Civil War, during that Winter Soldier era, when people were clamoring and asking for a Black Widow film. And then when this came out, and especially knowing that it killed a lot of the tension for me, because you know her fate, you know what happens to her. And there was moments in here that I was like, man, if this had been released before Endgame, before everything, to really get you excited and set it up, I thought it would have worked a little bit beneficial. But it felt more, I put this on the same level as the Ant-Man movies. Like, it's good, but it's not great. It's not like one of the top 5. I want to put this in my top 5 MCU films.
No, I wouldn't do that, but I would say like it moved the story along, and I'm not upset with how it moved the story along. And even though I know what happened to her from Endgame, the post credits kind of like, okay, now I'm really interested in it after the post credit. Yeah. And I will say like, okay, well,
we're gonna get into spoiler territory, so we'll let them know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil the post credit scenes. I'm just gonna say that it kept me, you know what? Like a lot of people, like here's a few things that I didn't like about what people said about it. You had some women that were like, oh, you only hated this because this was a strong woman move. This is a strong movie about a strong woman. And, like you guys just can't deal with it. And I'm like, that's not true. I happen to think the movie was done very well. I happen to think that Scarlett Johansson played her ass off in this movie. I happen to think that I liked all the characters in there. I know there's an issue you have with one of the characters, but I didn't have as much of an issue with it as I thought I would. And basically, I was, you know what? I think a lot of people expect, it's kind of like the WandaVision effect. We expected way too much, and we got just what we needed. And what Black Widow was supposed to do was start off and move phase 4 on. That's what it was supposed to do.
It was supposed to be the first release of phase 4 originally.
Well, actually, technically, from the way they put it on the timeline, WandaVision, all the Disney Plus shows are the start of phase 4. So as far as I'm concerned, like it moved it along. It was kind of like the first Thor movie. I was like, okay, the first Thor movie is good, wasn't great.
Yeah.
I wasn't blown away by it, but it moved the phases along, and it was the next step. So I think I'm not Wanda, Black Widow was a good movement to where Phase 4 is going, because we don't know what everything else is, and if you saw the ending credits, you're kind of curious as to what's going to go on.
Yeah. It's they're using, especially with the ending credits, it seems like they're doing that same setup they did with the original Avengers movie. Now we're using like kind of her as the new Nick Fury, but only recruiting the anti-hero villains for whatever
Well,
is coming
well,
along.
it looks like they're setting up Dark Avengers,
Yeah.
and if you think about it, one of the things that you got to think about when it comes to the phases going on is that Captain America's old,
Hmm.
Hulk is damaged, Iron Man is dead, Black Widow is gone, Hawkeye seems kind of retired, Vision is gone. Well, the Vision we know is gone.
Yeah.
Wanda is a bit broken, and who out of the original Avengers, who's really left? So of course they're gonna have to start something new. They're gonna have to come up with something new. So there's gonna have to be a new team that's gonna be put together to replace what we've lost so far. So far, the only Avenger really left is Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Not well, Hawk left whole is Hawkeye.
Yeah. um, I would have to say my biggest gripe, obviously, is it's the same problem. The villains weren't really up to par with this one, but like, I mean, the villains do what they're supposed to do. They serve justice to the movie. I did like. Well, first, let me say what I really like. First of all, the performances are all top notch as always. When it comes to the Marvel movies, Scarlett nails it. Florence kills this role. Like she definitely, I would love to see her just the torch has been passed. We'll just put it that way. The torch has officially been passed to her, and I think she's going to be a great addition to the MCU. The Taskmaster, as you alluded to, what my biggest disappointment was the Taskmaster. Now, this is a spoiler alert, so if you haven't watched the movie, skip this part right here. Um, I didn't mind the gender swap as a lot of people did, but because I remember when we first did the podcast, I said that she's going to be a woman, and I said just by the
True.
body frame that that's a woman. That was a woman. Wasn't a black woman, which I predicted, but it was a woman. So that I didn't mind the gender swap or anything. I had a problem for me was more of the way. I mean, it made it a more realistic take on it, or how this person can mimic everybody's powers and mimic everybody's fighting style. So I give it credit for that, but I just the character was felt more like a Terminator, just like a stalker, or just that just comes in just this unbeatable force, but really no characterization. It was just like robotic, and I was just like, that was just like the disappointment from it. It was just like I wanted dialogue from the Taskmaster. I wanted, some interaction. It was just like this silent machine, even though it wasn't a machine, but it was just like this silent machine that just goes out. And now I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. Wanted more of an interactive villain.
Well, you know what I think most people are going to be upset about is that because the Taskmaster speaks a lot. Like he's kind of like Spider-Man and Deadpool in a way where he will like run off at the mouth.
Yeah,
He will like just um talk to the person that he's fighting. So at this point, I think everybody was like, I kind of didn't understand like with the mask and everything how she was mimicking. Like if you're gonna do the Taskmaster, you have to mimic the fact that because you have to remember the fact that even in the comic books, they don't really know how his mind works. They give you like stories about how it works. Like there's a point where whatever his mind is so filled to this point, if he learns a new move, he loses a memory.
exactly.
And so I can kind of get that. I can kind of get where the MCU doesn't want to do that and bring that to light. So you make it something that pertains to Black Widow, which was fine for me. I just said instead of me like knocking it right now, let's see where it goes. If it
It,
if it if it doesn't go anywhere or they never show Taskmaster again, then I'll be like, okay, that was a waste. But if they come up with something for Taskmaster to show up in, like for instance, Maybe it is like the Dark Avengers and Taskmaster becomes the new Hawkeye. Oh well, no, wasn't it like I think it was Bullseye the new Hawkeye in the Dark Avengers? I'm not sure. I think Bullseye was, but for MCU purposes, let's say Taskmaster becomes the new Hawkeye, then I can just say, hey, it works.
Um, yeah, actually, it was Bullseye. He became the new Hawkeye.
Yeah,
Um, I
Dark Hawkeye.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if it for me, it was just more of I wanted a more fleshed out villain. Because I don't know. I'm not saying it was a cop out, like, her link to the dad and the dad made her that. I was just like, okay, I get it. I mean, we do have to give credit to Marvel for being the first ones to do first superhero movie to really go F them kids, because that scene was dark as hell. Had to be the darkest scene in a Marvel movie. Natasha
Kind of
was just like, yo, just blow his shit up.
it was. So
Yeah, because I was just like, oh damn, this went dark quickly. I was like, wow, Marvel just said F them kids. She was just Natasha was just like, yo, I want him dead. I'm using her as a tool. She in the window, yo, blow it out. I was like, wow, props. They went there. And like this one had the most curses. I mean, they dropped a lot of B's, they dropped a lot of S words in this one. I was like, wow, okay. I see where y'all going with this.
well, I think with this one, they want to. If you remember through most of the movies, Natasha's always like, "I got a lot of red on my ledger."
Yeah.
So maybe this was giving us a little peek into how much red she actually really did have on a
Yeah.
ledger.
Yeah, and for the most part, when it comes to the character, I think they nailed it good. They gave us a nice backstory. They showed her childhood. Like they really fleshed out the Black Widow. And this, I can really see this as a book ending for her, as she passed the torch to the actress Florence for her character. I can see this going somewhere. But like you said, I'm curious about it. I'm curious to see where it's going to go and how it's going to set up the phase 4. But if I'm going to give this stars, if I'm gonna give my rating right now, I'm gonna give this 3.5. I did enjoy it. There are some one thing I just the villains for me weighted down again. Um, I did love the aspect of the Red Room. I did love the aspect of all these widows and what they do to these girls, and how this guy's just been collecting and using girls who have been abandoned, girls who have no family. They feel insecure, and he brings them in, and he has it in his mind. This is one thing I did like about the writing of the villain. He has it in his mind like, hey, I'm giving them purpose. He doesn't see. He's so warped in his perception that he doesn't see that, yo, you are just literally controlling these women. You don't see what you're doing.
Which is
And
true because he made like a really good villain. Like
yeah,
at this point, it was one of those where you were just like, okay, he's a decent villain that maybe should have survived, but I kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to spoil it too much because I know somebody's going to be like, oh, yo, I'm going to give Black Widow a 4
okay,
only because it was entertaining enough for me to not like flip out and be like, this is trash. Because I've heard people like, oh, this movie is trash. Like I heard two sides to it. People who wanted a strong female character praised it. And I
yeah,
don't know if they praised it because it was just a female character. People who were expecting some exactly how they got their hopes up again, like WandaVision, expected like this movie that was going to blow you away. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 Marvel movies that blew me away. Captain America: Winter Soldier,
mm,
um, Avengers: Infinity War. Endgame was good, but Infinity War,
it's better.
yeah, Infinity War was better because of the story. I will say Endgame had the best ending scene from the last fight scene on was worth the price of admission for Endgame. It was like
Yeah,
all that. That was the greatest thing. And I'm gonna say this, go on record as saying this, until something proves it wrong. Endgame's final fight scenes, the final part of Endgame,
the Avengers assemble.
will probably go down as one of the greatest comic book movie scenes. So you can just take that last 40 minutes of the movie and it makes everything worth it. And I will say, I don't want to say Civil War is like. I'll probably say Civil War. Really, no. I'm gonna say Winter Soldier and Infinity War are probably the two best things Marvel has put out. And if I'm gonna go now with Disney Plus, I'm gonna say Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say if I put those three in my top, I would say those top. I put Black Widow in the same thing I said with Thor. Thor is one of those great movies that moves the Marvel Cinematic Universe along.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it does. It moves it along. It keeps you very interested in the story, and it keeps you saying what is going to be next. That's what I'll say. So that's why I'm going to give it a 4 because it was steeped in realism. It was really good. The action scenes were great. Scarlett Johansson played her ass off. Everybody in that movie, even though I know a lot of people didn't like the comic relief in it, I think the comic relief was great.
I mean, the comic relief was good, but for me, and this is just like I texted you earlier. I was like, my main gripe still happens sometimes is when they don't let the emotional moments or dramatic moments breathe a bit. Like they constantly like, oh man, this is getting too dark. Insert a joke really quickly, just to kill the tension of it. But it's just like, no, you got to let those beats. It didn't happen much here, but there was one scene. I guess it was the scene. It was the dinner table scene when they were like that was the heavy emotion, especially with Florence's character. When she was like, "You guys are my parents. You're all I know." And then when she goes to the room, Dave's character, Red Guardian, cracks a little bit of a joke, and it just like it killed the tension. It's like, dude, I know what you're trying to do to escalate that dramatic scene, but it's just like let it breathe just a tad bit more.
Well,
And then boom.
I think the reason why they did that is because his character was supposed to be this goofy character, and
Yeah.
he doesn't know how to take emotion seriously. So that's why I gave it a pass. That's just me. Some people probably won't. That's why I gave it a pass.
But otherwise than that, I say, oh, we can't before we go. Fight scenes was good. I love the fight scenes. Fight scene was great, especially the last sequence. I thought it was pretty good as well. Chase sequence remind me too much of Winter Soldier with Samuel Jackson though, but
you can deal with that because it
goes
on the same line.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise it was like I was like, damn, didn't they do something like this in Winter Soldier? Only it was like what a bigger car this time. But otherwise than that, I mean, we enjoyed it, didn't hate it. Pretty decent movie. Check it out on Disney Plus or in theaters right now. It already hit 200 million. So,
well, what I will say is before we go, I want everybody to realize one thing. Thanks to the fans, Disney Plus really this is the first time Disney started letting us know exactly what the streaming numbers are. Black Widow was 27% of the stream this weekend. What was it, $60 million they made?
Yeah.
Off of the Disney Plus. So just remember, like, you're letting Disney know that, hey, listen, sometimes we want to sit down and we want to sit in the comfort of our own home and watch this. And you guys made Black Widow a success. Don't take it away from whether you loved it or hated it. You made it a success because I think so far opening weekend for a pandemic, Black Widow opened at like what
200 million.
200 million, and whether you loved it or hated, you contributed to that movie being a success. So kudos to Disney, kudos to Marvel for putting out something that everybody. I'll be the first to tell you, I was the first one to criticize that the NBA players got to see it first. It's already a year late. This is gonna suck, and I hate to put it to them. Hey, Marvel, did you think it was worth the wait?
Yep. So we're gonna wrap this up here. This is Justin and Sean from tacosandgeeks.com. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook.com/the blog, Instagram at Tacos and Geeks, Twitter at Tacos and Geeks, and follow us on Twitch.tv/the Geeks. Later days.
And